Then I use comprehension, integer input, enter value. Okay, for j in range of 2. So for I in range of 2. So 2 rows and 2 columns here. Then print. So print enter elements of matrix 2. So print enter elements of matrix 2. I just write matrix 2. Within the list, I'm creating a list. And inside this list, I try to input how many values again? 2 values for j in range of 2. And within the list, you are creating how many lists here? 2 lists. So range of 2. So this is nothing but reading 2 by 2 matrices. So that is a matrix 1 and one more is a matrix 2. Now after this, I want to perform the operation called addition. So within the list, I'm creating a list, and inside this list, you are storing matrix 1 of ij plus. Within the list, you are storing, within the list, you are creating another list, and inside that list, you are storing matrix 1 of ij plus matrix 2 of which one? Ij. So for j in range of what here? 2. So this is outer loop for I in range of 2. For I in range of 2. What is the value of I? 0. So I value is 0. So it will create a list. And within this list, what is the j value? 0. Matrix 1 of 0, 0 plus matrix 2 of 0, 0. The next j value is what? 1. Then matrix 1 of 0, 1 plus matrix 2 of what? 0, 1. So next I value becomes what? 1. Then it will create another list. Matrix 1 of 1, 0 plus matrix 2 of 1, 0. Matrix 1 of 1, 0 plus matrix 2 of what? 1, 0. Okay, yes. So this is how you are trying to add it. And after that, I am trying to display matrix 3. So this is matrix 3. So enter the elements of matrix 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Enter the elements of matrix 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see this is a list contain how many lists here? 2 lists. So this is nothing but matrix 1 and this is matrix 2. And 1 plus 5 is what here? 6. And 2 plus 6 is what here? 8. 3 plus 7 is what here? 10. And 4 plus 8 is what here? 12. Okay, yes. But everything is in one statement only. This is input the elements of first matrix. This is inputting elements of second matrix. And after that, you are doing what here? Comprehension. Yes, adding it. Even adding also I did by using comprehension. Okay, yes. So this is another way of creating the list. This is another way of creating the list. So number of approaches are there, right? So within this is one approach for creating the list. Yeah, this is how you work with the list. And there is one more collection is there. And what is that collection is here? Tuple. There's one more collection is there. And what is the name of that collection here? Tuple. So tuple is also one sequence, but tuple is a immutable sequence. Tuple is what here? Immutable sequence. Tuple is immutable sequence type. After creating tuple, we cannot modify or update. After creating tuple, we cannot modify or what? Update. So tuple is immutable sequence type. After creating tuple, we cannot modify or update. So tuple is like list only. Tuple is like list, but it is what here? Immutable. Tuple is like list only, but it is immutable list. You can say tuple is a immutable list. Tuple is immutable list where after creating list you can do the changes, but after creating tuple you cannot do what? Changes. After creating list you can do the changes, but after creating tuple you cannot do what? Changes, right? So tuple is immutable sequence type. After creating tuple, we cannot modify or what? Update. But where this tuple is used, is the tuple is used to represent elements in set, and tuple is used to represent elements in what? Dictionary. Tuple is used to represent elements in set, and tuple is used to represent elements in what? Dictionary. And tuple is used by enumerate. So when you use enumerate, iterator and what? Enumerate. Enumerate read how many values? Two values. One is a count and one more is what? Value. So enumerate written what? Tuple, which contain how many values? Two values. So where tuple is used is, this is where tuples are used. Okay. Yes. Just try to see here. This is the definition given by the Python definition of tuples. So tuples are immutable sequences. This is a Python definition. Tuples are immutable sequences typically used to store collection of what? Heterogeneous data. But even you can store homogeneous data. Heterogeneous means different types of data. Homogeneous means what? Similar type data. So within tuple, you can store heterogeneous data or you can store what? Homogeneous data, no problem. Okay, tuples also used for cases where an immutable of homogeneous data is required, such as what? Such as allowing storage in what? Set, allowing storage in what? Dictionaries. If you want to represent some data in set, you can represent that data as which one? Tuple. If you want to represent data in dictionary, you can represent that data using which one? Tuple. And not only that, collection of heterogeneous data such as two tuples produced by which one? Enumerate built-in. Enumerate function, what it returns? A tuple which contain the count as well as what? Value. It contains the count as well as a value. And not only that, tuples are very much useful when you are working with the set and what is that? Dictionaries. Tuples are very much useful when you are working with the set and dictionaries for representing what? Data. For representing data, these tuples are very much useful. So the question might be asked like, uh, before this, how to create a tuple? So how to create tuple? So you can create a tuple. Okay, you can create a singleton, empty tuple. How can you create an empty tuple? Empty tuple is created using, okay, using which one? Tuple function or tuple type. And tuple type, empty tuple is created by using which one? Tuple type. Empty tuple, you are creating it using tuple type, or so already is given here, right? So we'll just take this one. So different approaches are there. Using pair of parentheses to denote what here? Empty tuple. So if how list is represented using square brackets, how the list is represented using square brackets, and how the tuple is represented using parenthesis. The tuple is represented using parenthesis. Tuple is represented using parenthesis. Tuple is represented using parenthesis, but list is represented by using square brackets and using trailing commas for a singleton tuple. Singleton tuple means the tuple which contain only one value. The tuple which contain one value, so that tuple you call it as what? Singleton tuple. The tuple which consists of only one value, and that tuple is called as what? Singleton, but that is separated with what? Comma. Within parenthesis, you represent value that is separated with comma. And separating items with commas, A comma B comma C, or within the parenthesis, you'll write A comma B comma what? C. It means the tuple which contain how many values? Multiple values. If you want to represent a tuple with multiple values, then you are separating with which one? Comma. So using the tuple function, you can create empty tuple, or you can convert other iterables into what? Tuple. Now you want to convert list to tuple, then use which function? Tuple function. You want to convert range to tuple, then use which function? Tuple function. If you want to convert set to tuple, then use which function? Tuple function. If you want to convert other iterables into which type? Tuple type, then you take the help of which function? Tuple function. So using pair of parentheses to denote the empty tuple, and using trailing commas for singleton tuple, and separating items with what here? Commas. And using tuple built-in or tuple function, a tuple it followed by which one? Iterable. Iterable, right? Tuple it followed by the iterable. See, you can also perform certain, yes, where the tuple is used is, now you have to remember, tuple is used where you want to represent immutable collection. You want to represent immutable list, then you represent that by using which one? Tuple. Not only that, I said no, tuple is used to represent the data in sets and what? Dictionaries. Tuple is used to represent the data in set as well as what? Dictionary. And not only that, enumerate. Internally, it is using which one? Tuple, which generate how many values? 2 values. Okay. And this is how you create the tuple. Suppose the question is, suppose if the question is asked, what is the difference? If the question is asked, what is the difference between list and one more is which one? Tuple. What is the difference between list and tuple? Okay, if the question is like this, what is the difference between the list and tuple? So this is a list, and this is which one here? Tuple. So list is, what you can say is, list is a mutable. So list is what? Mutable collection. List is a mutable collection, but tuple is what? Immutable collection. List is a mutable collection, but tuple is what? Immutable. Means, what is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of this here? After creating list, we can add, update, and remove what? Elements. Add, update, and remove what? Elements. So after creating tuple, we cannot do what here? Changes. After creating tuple, we cannot do any changes. Okay. So list is immutable and tuple is what? Immutable. And list is created using square brackets, and tuple is created using parenthesis. Okay, list is created using square brackets, and tuple is created using what? Parenthesis. Okay. And list required extra space. List required extra space for performing mutable operations. Okay, list required extra space for performing which operations? Mutable operations. So tuple doesn't occupy more space. Doesn't occupy more space because it is immutable. Because it is what? Immutable. It doesn't require any extra space. It doesn't require any extra space. For example, inserting required some extra space for shifting. Okay, for shifting elements from one place to what? Another, right? So it required some extra space for performing which operations? Mutable operations. But tuple doesn't occupy more space. Why? Because tuple is a mutable or immutable? Immutable, right? And list is created. List is created using what is the name of the class here? List class. List class, or what is that? Data type. And tuple is created using which class here? Tuple class, or what is that? Data type. So list is not efficient to handle large amount of data because it take what here? Extra space. But tuple is efficient to handle which one? Large amount of data because it occupies what? Less space. It occupies less space compared to which one? List. It occupies less space compared to which one? List, right? So not efficient, to handle large amount of which one? Data. It is efficient to handle data large amount of data. And list is not hashable. List is not hashable. Okay, list is not hashable. List is not hashable. We'll discuss this. What is hashable in sets? But tuple is what here? Hashable. So tuple is hashable, but list is not hashable. So these are some of the differences between the list and tuple. So list is a mutable collection and tuple is what? Immutable collection. After creating list, we can add, update or remove the elements. And after creating tuple, we cannot do any changes. List is created using square brackets and tuple is created using parentheses. List required extra space for performing mutable operations, but tuple doesn't occupy more space. And list is created using list class or what? Data type. And tuple is created using tuple class or what? Data type. And not efficient to handle large amount of data. It is efficient to handle large amount of data. List is not hashable, but tuple is what here? Hashable. I cannot use a list to represent data of sets and what? Dictionaries, but I can use tuple to represent data of sets and what? Dictionaries. Why? Because these are called which one? Hashables. Okay. Now these are some differences between the list and tuple. So when you go for list and when you go for tuple, that depends on your application requirement. List is used if you want to represent a collection of mutable data. If you want to represent a collection of mutable data, then you go for which one? List. If you want to represent collection of immutable data where you don't want to do any changes, then go for which one? Tuple. So I create a list of employees where I don't want any changes to be done. I can represent that as what? Tuple. Where I should able to do changes, then I'll go for which one? List. Now that is depending on your application. You go for list and what is that? Tuple. But both are indexes, both are sequences. List is a sequence and tuple is also what? Sequence. List support indexing and slicing, and tuples also support what? Indexing and slicing. But it doesn't have which methods? It doesn't have which methods? Mutable methods. Tuple doesn't have mutable methods. So how you are creating a tuple? Using which one? Parenthesis. Suppose I am trying to create a tuple by saying T1 equal to parenthesis. This parenthesis represent which tuple? Empty tuple. This parenthesis represent which tuple? Empty tuple. Can I say T1 dot append? Can I say T1 dot append 10? No. After creating tuple, can you do any changes? No. For example, I create a list. How you create a list? Using square bracket. After creating a list, can you add the value? Yes. After creating a list, can you add the value? Yes. But after creating tuple, can you add the value? No. So you don't find any methods like append, remove. You cannot do that. Suppose I can write list 1 dot append. I can say 20. So now the list is having how many values here? 2 values. But after creating a tuple, can I do the operation append? No, because there is no append method in what? Tuple. There is no append in what? Tuple. There is no append in tuple. There is no mutable methods in what? Tuple. There is no append. There is no insert. There is no append, insert, pop, clear, remove. All these methods are not available in what? Tuple. Append, insert, remove. Okay, remove, pop. All these methods are not available in what? Tuple, because tuple is mutable or immutable? Immutable. So all these methods are not available. Getting on not? Okay. So this represent which tuple? Empty tuple. So how you are creating empty tuple? By using parenthesis. You can also create a tuple with one value. How can you create a tuple with one value? I cannot write within parenthesis 10. If I write within parenthesis 10, is it this is tuple? No, this is not a tuple. Why it is not as a tuple? Because parenthesis also used for grouping expression or not? Yes. Parenthesis also used for grouping what? Expression. So in that case, is it this represented as a tuple? No. It is not represented as what here? Tuple. It is represented as one integer value. It is represented as one integer value, but it is not represented it as what? Tuple. Okay, right now, if you are writing like this, and if you are writing type of T2, T2 is a variable of which type? Integer type. Is it this is a tuple or integer? Integer. Because I said no, parenthesis also used for grouping what? Expression. Then how can I create a tuple with one value? So you can create a tuple with one value by separating with what? Comma. If you want to create a tuple with one value, then you represent one value by separating with the comma. Then if I say print T3, so T3 is having one value. And what is the type of T3 here? T3 is of which type? Tuple type. T3 is of which type here? Tuple. Getting or not? Okay, just try to understand this. Okay, if you want to represent singleton tuple, even I can write a tuple without using parenthesis also. Suppose if I am writing 100 comma, so even this T4 also treated as what? Tuple. So type of T4. T4 is which type here? Tuple type. If I want to create a tuple with multiple values, 100, 200, 300, 500, or use any parenthesis here? No, not use any parenthesis. Now what is T5 here? Tuple. How many values here? 5 values. But I can also create a tuple writing in what? Parenthesis 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Now this tuple is having how many values? 6 values. Now you can create a tuple with parenthesis. You can create a tuple without parenthesis if it's having multiple values. But empty tuple anyway, you have to use empty parenthesis. You have to create empty tuple using empty parenthesis. But if you want to create a tuple with one value, it is always required to put what? Comma. If you don't put the comma, then it's treated as which value? Integer value. If you don't put the comma, then it is treated as which value? Integer value. Right? So print, now this is T1, T2. Yes. So this is how you are creating a tuple using parenthesis. But you can also create a tuple. You can also create a tuple. You can also create a tuple by using. You can also create a tuple using which type? Tuple type. You can also create a tuple using which type? Tuple type. But when you go for tuple type, if you want to convert other collections into which type? Tuple type. Suppose list is there. Is it list is mutable or immutable? So list is a mutable. Now I want to convert into immutable. Then convert list into what? Tuple. List is mutable. I want to make it that list as what? Immutable. Then convert that list into what? Tuple. Now I'm trying to create one empty tuple by using which type here? Tuple type. Now T7 is there. T7 is called which tuple here? Empty tuple. T7 is what here? Empty tuple. And T8 equal to tuple. I want to create a tuple using which one? A range. So assume that this is a range which generate how many values? 10 values. So what is the start value I've given? 10. What is the stop value? 110. What is the step value? 10. So incremented with 10 or not? Yes. So the tuple is having how many values? 10 values. So this is a tuple which consists of how many values? 10 values. I want to create a tuple. Now I'm trying to use a tuple. I want to create a tuple using list. Now this is a tuple created using which one here? List. Now this tuple is having how many values? 5 values. I try to create a tuple. I try to create a tuple by saying tuple of. So I want to create a tuple using a string. What is this here? String. Is a string is one collection or not? Yes. String is also one collection. Now what this tuple will do is each time it will read one character. What this tuple will do is each time it will read one character and add it. Read first character. What is the first character? P. Add inside the tuple. What is the second character? Y. Add inside the tuple. What is the third character? T. Add inside the tuple. H will add inside the tuple. O will add inside the tuple. N is added inside what? Tuple. Now your tuple is having how many values? How many strings are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now if you see this is a tuple contain how many? 6. But can I modify? I want to change the first character. I want to change the first string. Can I modify? Can I write T of T10 of 0 equal to? Can I write J? Can I replace the first value with from P to J? No, because is it tuple is mutable or immutable? Immutable. I cannot do any changes. So tuple object does not support which assignment? Item assignment, because it is immutable. I cannot replace it. I can replace in what? List. I cannot replace in what? Tuple, because tuple is a immutable. You cannot do any changes. For example, if I am saying delete T10 of 0, I want to delete the first element. Can I delete the first element? No, because again, tuple object does not support which deletion? Item deletion, because it is immutable. So once it is created, you cannot do any changes. Once the tuple is created, you cannot do any changes. You cannot append, you cannot insert, you cannot remove, you cannot replace. You cannot insert, you cannot update, you cannot remove, or you cannot replace. You cannot do all these operations. That is called as immutable. That is what you mean by immutable. So that is called as immutable. Immutable means where you cannot do any changes. It's only for reading, but not for, suppose if I want to do changes in tuple, what should I do? If I want to do changes in tuple, I have to convert this tuple. Into what? List. If I want to do any changes, I have to convert into which one? List. I have to convert into which one here? List. I have to convert into list, right? If I want to do changes anything in the tuple, I have to convert the tuple into what? List. I have to convert the tuple into what? List. But I cannot do changes directly inside what? Tuple. No, I cannot do it. Getting or not? Okay. So just try to understand. If you want to do any changes in immutables, you have to convert into what? Mutable. For example, list tuple, set, frozen set. Two types of sets are there. One is set, frozen set. Two types of list are there. List, tuple. List is mutable, tuple is immutable. So if you want to do changes in tuple, convert that tuple into what? List. For that, use which function? List function. If you want to convert mutable list to immutable, then convert list into what? Tuple. Like that. So two types of sets are there. One is set and one more is what? Frozen set. Set is mutable. Frozen set is what? Immutable. So if you want to do changes in frozen set, convert frozen set into what? Set. If you don't want to do changes in set, convert set into what? Frozen set. Like that. So these are helpful when you are working with functions. What will happen when you work with the functions is, a function is having list. A function is having list and you send that list to another function. If you send that list to another function, the other function can do the changes in what? List. But I don't want the other function should do changes in what? List. What I'll do? I'll try to put this list inside what? Tuple. And send which one? Tuple. So that the other function can read the data from tuple but cannot do any changes. Very much useful when you are working with the functions. When you are working with your own functions, you try to take the help of which one? Tuples to make, if you don't want the changes to be done in what? Other functions. Why? Because when you're talking about Python, right? In Python, there is no pass by value. There is only pass by reference. Means whenever you call the function by sending object, it doesn't send the object. It sends what? Object reference. Whenever you call the function by sending object, right? It doesn't send the object. It sends what? Object reference. When it sends the reference, the other function can do what? Changes. If it is mutable, the other function can what? Do the changes. But I don't want the other function to do what? Changes. Then what will I do? I don't send a mutable object directly, but I convert that mutable into what? Immutable, and then send it. So that the other function, what it can do, it can just read it, but cannot do any changes. So that is where it is used in real-time application development, right? Okay. So this is how you create the tuples, but the way how you read the content from the list in the same way you can read from which one? Tuple. How can you read the elements from the list using index, using slicing, using what? For loop. Getting on? So same thing, same thing. I'm creating a tuple. I'm creating a tuple with some 10 comma 110 comma 10. Now the tuple is having how many values? 10 values. How can I read the values from the tuple? I can use index for I in range of 10. So this range will generate how many values? 10 values. 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this range is generated how many values? 10 values. What is the first value in the range? 0. So what is the value of I here? 0. The value of I is 0 and print T1 of which one? I. So T1 of I means T1 of 0. So what is the value at T1 of 0? 10. So what is the value at T1 of 1? 20. What is the value at T1 of 2 here? 30. Like that. So are you reading each time one value or not? Yes. So once you print this, so you can see how many values are read here. Yes. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Okay. But it is done by using index. But using index, you can read sequentially as well as randomly. You can read directly from the tuple without using index. Without using index, you can read the values directly from the tuple. You can read the values directly from the tuple without using index. So this is without using index. You read the values directly from the tuple. Read the values directly from the tuple. Now you can see how many values are there? 10 values. So that is 10 to 100 here. So the number of values are 10 to 100 here, right? So, or you can read using slicing. I want to read first 5 values. I want to read last 5 values. I want to read. I want to read except the first 3 values and last 3 values. Already we have seen all this. So T2, T3 and sorry, T2, T3 and T4. And I just use a separator. Now you can see this is read first 5 values and this is read last 5 values and this is read except first 3 values and last 3 values. So remaining values. So you can read it using index. You can read it using for loop directly. You can read it multiple values with the help of slicing. Multiple values with the help of which one? Slicing. So reading elements from which one? Tuple. Reading elements from the tuple. So you are reading the elements from the tuple. in different ways. Now, these are the different ways of reading the elements from the tuple. Okay. So first one is using index. First one is using index, and second one is using for loop, and third approach is using which one? Slicing. Third approach is what? Using slicing. But here tuple comprehension is not allowed. See, in the differences, one more difference is list comprehension is allowed. List comprehension is allowed, but tuple comprehension is not allowed. List comprehension is allowed, but tuple comprehension is not allowed. No. List comprehension is allowed, but tuple comprehension is not allowed. Comprehension. See here, this is comprehension, right? So in comprehension, okay, this is comprehension, right? Oh, I think I said only syntax one, right? I didn't say about which one? Syntax 2. Okay, we'll just see this one. Syntax 2 is defined? No. So here we'll write it. So syntax 2 is there, right? How many syntaxes are there? Comprehension? 2 syntaxes are there. Syntax 1 and syntax 2. What is the syntax 2? Within the, this is comprehension. I didn't say this syntax 2. I said about only syntax. I said about only syntax 1. Let us see this syntax 2 also. And then we'll continue tuple. Yes. So before tuple, I just write syntax 2 also. Actually, this syntax 2, whatever you write in the square brackets is called as what? List. And within the list, you are storing the value, and there is a for loop, and there is what here? If condition. It's nothing but syntax 2 is for, syntax 2 is for filtering data based on condition. If you want to create a list based on some condition, then you do that by using which one here? Syntax 2. What is the meaning of this is, for example, there is one list. So there is a list which contain 1, 21. So how many values are there inside the list 1? 20 values are there. So there is values from 1 to 20, right? So how many values are there in list 1? 20 values. 20 values are there inside the list 1. 20 values are there inside the list 1. Okay. Now, what I want is, I want to separate from this list. I want to separate even numbers and odd numbers. From this list, I want to separate even numbers, and I want to put inside even numbers list. I want to separate odd numbers, and I want to put inside what? Odd numbers list. I want to separate even numbers and what? Odd numbers. So how can I separate this even numbers and odd numbers here? Suppose I create a list 2, and what you are doing is you are adding which one inside the list 2? Value. And from where you are reading the values? You are reading the values from where? List 1. Each time you are reading value from list 1, and that value you are storing in what? List 2. But you want to store all the values in list 2? No. Which values you want to store in list 2? If value is which number? Even number. If the value is which number here? Even number. So what you are doing here is, every time you are reading one value from what? List. Every time you are reading value from list, what is the first value in the list? 1. Is it 1 mod 2 is remainder 0? No. Is it this value is added or not added? Not added. Read the next value from the list 2. 2 mod 2 is remainder 0? Yes. Is it this value is added or not? Yes. So this list filter only which numbers? Even numbers. So this is having only even numbers. So I want to separate which numbers? On numbers value for value in list 1. If value mod 2 is not equal to what? 0. So this list 3 contain which numbers? Odd numbers. So I separated even numbers as well as what? Odd numbers. Okay, assume that there is a student list is there. There is a student list is there. Assume that there is a student list which contain a list which contain another list, and each list represent one student, name of the student and result. Result is what here? Pass. There is one more student called Suresh, and the result is what here? Pass. And there is another student is there, Ramesh, and the result is what here? Fail. And there is one more student is there, Kishore, and result is what here? Pass. And there is one more student is there, Samkiran, and the result is what here? Fail. Okay, so each one is one list. Each one is one list. Okay, so inside the list, I created how many lists? Five lists. Inside the list, I created how many lists? 5 lists. And each list is one. Each list is one student details or not? Yes. So that is called as a nested list. Okay. Assume that. So this is a nested list. Student list. This is student list. So this student list is having the students, those who are pass, and the students having which one? Fail. I want to separate. I want to separate the students, those who are pass, into one list. I want to separate the students, those who are fail, into what? Another list. Okay, now this is pass student list. Okay, this is pass student list equal to what I have to store? Every time you are reading one list. Every time you are reading one list from the list or not? Yes. Each element inside the list is one list. And each list, assume that, is a student. What you are adding inside the list? Student. And from where you are reading the student details? You are reading the student details from where? Student list. Every time you are reading one list from the student list. So what is STUD now? It is one list. What is STUD now? It is one list. Now, what will happen? Every time it will read one student list and add into what? List. But you want to add all? No. I want to add which one? STUD of 1. STUD of what? 1. Because STUD of 0 is what? Name. And STUD 1 is what? Result. STUD 1 is what? Name. 0 is name and 1 is a result. STUD 1 equal to which one? Pass. STUD 1 equal to which one? Pass. Now, in this case, this student pass list contain only the students, those who are what? Pass. So the number of students, those are pass. Now, if I am writing student fail result, so student fail list, this is student fail list equal to STUD. For STUD in STUD list, I am writing if STUD, if STUD of 1, if STUD 1 equal to which one here? Fail. So I try to filter only the students, those who are what? Fail. Now this is which list here? Fail list. So this is called as filtering. So how many students are fail? 2 students. Filter. Filter means where you are trying to write which one? Condition. You are writing one condition. So based on the condition, you are trying to create what? List. Based on the condition, you are trying to create the list. So that is called as a syntax 2. Two syntaxes are there, with if condition and without if condition. Without if condition is nothing but without filtering. You are directly adding the things inside the list. But here you are trying to perform adding based on some adding based on some condition. You are trying to perform addition based on some condition, right? So this is called as syntax 2. Syntax 1, syntax 2. Syntax 2 is having one condition, but syntax 1 is not having any condition. So if you want to create the list based on filtering, right, then you go for syntax 2. Otherwise not required. So this is reading elements from the tuple. So you are reading the elements from the tuple. How many ways here? Using index, using for loop, and using which one? Slicing. That's it. Okay. So tuple. So packing and unpacking, packing and unpacking, unpacking, which one? Tuple. So packing is nothing but grouping. Unpacking is nothing but reading. Packing is nothing but grouping. Unpacking is nothing but what here? Reading. Okay, right? So packing is nothing but okay, right? Yes. So what is the meaning of this is this is one more way of doing the things here. Yeah, this is also one frequently asked question here. So packing and unpacking. Packing and unpacking in what? Python. What is packing and unpacking in what? Python. So what is packing and unpacking in what? Python. Unpacking is a Python refers to an operation that consists of assigning an iterable of values to a tuple or list of variables in single assignment statement. So